have Ebola virus disease are extremely small. However, we are managing them in accordance with the standard national and state protocols for isolation of patients who are potentially at risk of Ebola virus disease, and everything has been implemented in a textbook fashion. And I think I need to commend both the ambulance officers and the hospital staff for the way in which they've handled this case. But I must emphasise that the risk of this patient having Ebola virus disease are extremely small.
What sort of symptoms is he showing?
He described an illness that could be consistent with malaria. But as I said, the reason why I believe the risk of this being Ebola is very small is, one, he's been to the Congo, where the number of cases of Ebola virus disease has been small, and they have a small outbreak which is unrelated to the major outbreak in Sierra Leone and Liberia. And also, at the moment, this patient has no fever, so it's mainly symptoms that he's described. So I really must emphasise the risk of him having this Ebola virus disease is exceedingly small. There's no risk to staff or the public at this stage. We are, however, managing with the protocols that have been established prior to him presenting, and we've been working on these in collaboration with state and federal governments over the last few weeks since the outbreak of Ebola virus disease in Western Africa. And we have established protocols now for dealing with these patients, so that the bloods have been collected from this individual, and they will be tested for Ebola virus disease, and we would expect results hopefully sometime this evening. We've been working on this, as I said, in collaboration with both state and federal governments and with the State Pathology Service, and we have established protocols for dealing with patients like this. The Gold Coast University Hospital is specifically designed for patients with infectious diseases, and we have, as you would see, a beautiful purpose-built modern facility that is capable of dealing with outbreaks, and the patient was managed in a textbook fashion. So I think it's a great credit to the staff, our staff, as well as the ambulance officers, the way they dealt with this patient.
Do things have to happen with, obviously, where this gentleman has been the past few days?
The first priority is just to confirm that he does not have Ebola virus disease, as we believe. I do not believe he has Ebola virus disease. And once we've determined that he does not have an infectious disease, then that won't be necessary. That's the first priority. The actual details of flights and what have you, that is being pursued by the public health unit, and that will all be determined. But if he does not, in fact, have an infectious disease, that's not relevant.
When are you expecting to have it?
Sometime this evening. Again, I must emphasize that Ebola virus disease is transmitted through body fluids, so mostly through the body fluids like vomit, urine, etc. So the chances that of a casual contact, even if an individual were to have Ebola virus disease on a plane, the chances of you experiencing that kind of contact and acquiring the infection is remote in the extreme. This particular patient, as I've said, has been in the Congo, where the number of cases of Ebola virus disease is extremely small, and he has we have no history of contact with a known patient with Ebola virus disease.
Was it his trip to the Congo that triggered this concern?
Yes, and the ambulance officers, quite correctly, in accordance with the protocols, notify us of a patient who have been to an African country where there is Ebola virus disease and was now unwell. They notified us immediately that happened, and our procedures and protocols were put in place immediately, and it was handled in a textbook fashion.
Can you tell us what those protocols are?
Oh, well, from the hospital's point of view, the moment the patient arrives in the hospital, he's placed in what is called negative pressure isolation. We have dedicated about 30-odd negative pressure isolation rooms across the hospital, both in the emergency department, in ward areas, and in the intensive care unit. These are isolation rooms with their own airlock, their own separate ventilation system, and staff wear personal protective equipment when they enter the room.
This must be pretty worrying for the patient himself.
I think so. Yes, I think that would make anyone anxious.
What is, you described his symptoms. What is his condition at the moment?
He's not too bad. He's not well. The general principle, the main symptom of Ebola virus, the symptoms of Ebola virus disease initially are very non-specific, and that's the problem. The principal symptom of Ebola virus disease is fever. You can get other things like vomiting and diarrhea, etc., and bleeding late in the illness, but the principal symptom is fever, and that's such a very non-specific symptom for anyone returning from Africa that it's not surprising that we have seen such a patient. Now, we would expect to see more patients like this. We see patients returning from Africa on a regular basis with febrile illnesses not so common for us to see patients from this particular part of the world where Ebola virus disease is seen. Probably most of our patients come from East and Southern Africa. We see relatively few from Southern and Central Africa. But it's not surprising that a patient returning from this part of the world could return with a febrile illness.
So is he only suffering from fever?
Those were symptoms.
Yeah, and how is he sort of doing generally?
He's okay. He's fine.
As far as you know, is this the first Ebola scare in Australia?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Were Gold Coast staff trained to be able to undertake?
Absolutely, they're trained in this, and the moment we are notified, our infection control team goes to the emergency department and oversees the isolation of this patient, the way in which the personal protective equipment is applied. There is a process for doing that, and it's been handled in a textbook manner. Our staff have also been helping assisting security officers, other officers, nursing staff involved with the case.
Given he hasn't got Ebola, as far as you know, at this stage, and his condition isn't too bad, when can you see him being released?
It's hard to say. It depends on what other test results come back.
Is the person sitting to your Gold Coast like family and friends?
I probably should go into further detail about that.
Do you have concerns over people you get in contact with?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Will you,
And can I say that the ambulance officer, in the moment he first identified that he was unwell, followed their protocols also in a textbook manner.
if it turns out it's malaria or something else, will that be confirmed this evening as well? Or
It's likely to be, yes.
What are the chances, in your expert opinion, what are the chances?
Vanishingly small. Vanishingly small.
What would be the implications though if it was Ebola in this situation?
We believe that with healthcare and the environment we perform it, that in a hospital such as this, in a healthcare setting such as this, in the developed world, that Ebola cannot transmit easily at all. We are used to dealing with infectious diseases, and we do that very well. We are equipped well to do it. This environment is not the same as Central and Western Africa.
So is this basically not Ebola, it's real for you guys?
Absolutely. I think that's a very good point. That even though if this is unlikely to be Ebola, it's tested our processes, and these processes have come out and demonstrated that they are outstanding, and it has indeed been a good exercise.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
No fever in the beginning.
He has symptoms of fever, but we have not documented it.
Right, so he said he's felt what and that sort of thing, but
That's
no fever's
correct.
been documented. Right,
That's
okay.
correct.
And that's one of the main symptoms.
That is the main symptom.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
a problem with a lot of infectious diseases in this part of the world. They all look the same, whether it's Ebola virus disease or malaria or typhoid, which are the three biggest causes of fever we would see in this part of the world would be malaria, typhoid, and dengue fever. We see that all the time from Africa, and they're pretty indistinguishable.
Given
Early
the,
on.
Given
Early
the,
on.
Given the area where you was,
Yes.
Sorry, I was going to say something sort of live.
would you say very personally, in your opinion, malaria is the most likely?
if we just
No, I'm not going to say that. No, I'm not going to say that. That's obviously the thing that that is most important to exclude. I think it's fair to say that malaria is the commonest cause of fever in a returning traveller from that part of the world. I'm not going to say that he definitely has malaria, but if the question is what is the commonest cause of fever in a traveller returning from that part of the world, yes.
So it's more
And it's certainly
likely,
the most serious.
a traveller coming from that part of the world would have malaria than Ebola.
Correct.
But he doesn't have a fever or anything.
He doesn't have a
Not that you've
documented fever. I mean, I hedge. The reason I hedge is because people often don't have a fever in the morning, a documented fever in the morning. They'll have it in the evening because the temperature varies during the course of the day. So that's why I'm hedging and not. He describes symptoms of a fever, and it's not uncommon for us to see patients describing symptoms of a fever and not actually document the fever on that first presentation in the emergency department. So he may develop a fever this evening, for example.
And are you guys waiting on pathological tests? Is that
Yes.
what you're waiting on?
Yes.
That's what will determine
Do you know how many do with the Congo?
And so, what's made you rule it out then? The fact that it's just.
I think the main things that make principally because the Congo, we've only had relatively small numbers of cases. The major outbreak has been in Liberia and Sierra Leone. There's been a small outbreak in the Congo, and it's curiously, it's quite curious. It's a different strain, and it's happening at the same time, but the numbers have been small. And he's not particularly sick, but look, we're treating him as such. We'll get the test back. I don't want to say it's impossible, otherwise we wouldn't be doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
How many tests would he be undergoing?
Oh, he goes through how many tests?
Yeah, right.
Oh, he goes through lots of tests.
Yeah,
Like big measures, blood count, white cell count, liver, creatinine. We test him for dengue fever. We test him for typhoid. We test him for malaria, obviously, and Ebola.
Is there actually a pathological test for Ebola, or
Yes.
is it a matter of
No. It's a very specific test that the Queensland Pathology Service has established in the last few weeks. So they actually amplify up the RNA of the virus, and to be tested then. It's obviously the first. I assume it's the first one they've tested. I assume. Yes, so.
And so that will come back pretty quick.
Well, this evening, really. Today, certainly today.
And in the meantime, he's still in
He's
isolation.
isolated. He'll be isolated.
That's great.